And we're live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. Vlogcast comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. This Vlogcast started as a combination of spite and the Streisand effect because I needed a socially acceptable way of fanboying, and this was the way to do it. So, tough. Part of this is to follow through with the old adage that sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. I'm your main host. I'm known as Shujin Tribble pretty much everywhere. You can find me under that name. That's Shujin. Hi. Let me go ahead and introduce you to the folks with the possibility of there being additions, hopefully, shortly. We'll see. From the Midwest of the U.S., Bridget, good evening.
Good evening.
Off to the right-hand coast, where things are relatively quiet, which is kind of novel for a change. On Renault Tech, good morning.
Good morning. Don't jinx it.
Yeah.
Oh, and as a as kind of a what do they call those public
Service
notice?
announcement.
Yeah, as a public service announcement, as a new owner of a 3D pen, melted plastic is hot.
Yep. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So it's hot wax. I'm just saying.
So are glue guns, but, it takes all types. And if you take a left-hand turn at the Beltway and go up and jump over the border, which you're really not allowed to do, but some people will do it, because you can do it when you've got electronics involved, up into, I don't know how to pronounce it in French, Canada, I think is how it's...
Canada or something like that.
Up there in Canuckistan, returning guest... Dr. Courtney Plante, otherwise known as Dr. Nuka, is joining us back again. Good to see you again, man.
It's good to be back.
So, for those of you that are at all familiar, yes, it has been quite a long time since Dr. Nuka was back with us, and it's turned into kind of an interesting thing this year where good news happened, and it finally prompted me to say, I want to have people back on the show again. And who better to talk to than somebody who is part of the upper educational liberal Illuminati group. And I figured that's probably a good choice to get somebody who actually still likes me and is awake this time of the night. So we'll deal with that. Of course, as always, everybody, if you join us live, you can join over on the live chat, which is happening over there. So Stephanie, Felis, A, good to see you both. B, Felis, you know full well I'm going to tell you, if you can't stay awake, don't you push it, because so help me, there are too many damn people who want to take you out of your place and put you into a bed. Not in the fun way, just in the you need to go to sleep way. So you be careful. Yeah, Felis had some time off because of medical things going on. So, an opportunity to remind her that, you're not Supergirl is probably the... I know.
She can always go back and watch the episode later.
It's true. That's true. So we'll see how that plays out. I want to get it out of the way first, only because I did go looking up information on Rafe Badawi's condition. We have no new information that was easily accessible. And since we kind of missed out on last week, as of the recording of tonight's show, it has now been 9 years, 1 month, 7 days since Rafe Badawi was unjustly incarcerated for thought crime. Our hopes or thoughts are still with you and your family. We are still waiting. Why did we miss last week? Last week would have been my, 28th wedding anniversary? And I've powered through many of these events before, and last week just was not happening. It just was not going to happen. And I would much rather have done a bye week instead of trying to get through and not being able to keep myself at all composed. And even though this is, we don't get paid for this, although, you could really pay us over on Patreon, just saying. Even though we don't get paid for this, I try really hard to do something resembling professionalism in being the main host of, wrangling everything. I was not in an emotional spot to be able to do that. So we're back now. To that end, since I would normally be trying different beers, I decided to find one of the old Japanese tea set things that my wife and I had bought a long time ago, and I figured that I would finish off the wine that we love so much. Now,
I think it's hilarious that you pull up the Japanese tea set, because I'm having a Japanese Kit Kat bar that is it's imported from Japan, so the wrapper's written in Japanese and everything, and it's got the space on the back so you can write a message on the back and then you share it with somebody,
oh, that's
because
cool.
they're big on they're well, Japan has that going with the Kit Kats. They love that, and they have that mentality for it. So this one's flavor is Sakura Japanese Sake.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's supposed to imitate sake, and that made from the sakura flower blossom. Sorry, and it tastes really nice. It is definitely a floral flavor, a little bit reminiscent of sake. I've had a couple, and I like it. This one's going into like my regular candy jar going forward.
No, no worries. So, 28 years. It would have been a really, really good run. Come by.
I am.
So, there's not much in that one. I'll sip on that as we go. For anybody that wants to go looking up for it, it is the Woodbury Vineyard. This is the Niagara. It's white. And we loved it. When we went to a taste testing, the company folks said, good wine doesn't matter how much it costs. Good wine is wine that you will want to drink again. Doesn't matter how expensive it is or how cheap. If you like
Amen.
it, that's good wine. So if you find something you like, go with it. So, how's everybody holding up right now? I mean, mental check-in before I go ahead and launch into the openings. The good doctor and I, we were talking before the rest of you guys got over here. We typically yearly, Nuka and I kind of, we kind of have a check-in at Anthrocon, a couple minutes, get away from everything, how you been doing, how you holding up, what's been going on new. And, we kind of have our own little family gathering, so to speak. So, we kind of had a little bit of kibitz time. But how you guys holding up? Doc, I guess start off with you, because at least for you, things are holding pretty well.
Yeah, I was sort of mentioning before the show that I feel this immense sense of guilt in some ways, because it feels like the world is burning down around me, and things are going pretty well for me, all things considered. Like with my getting tenure recently, I'm just putting the finishing touches on a new book. So yeah, I moved in with a couple of roommates. So for the first time in like 8 years, I'm no longer living by myself. I have sort of like a family I'm living with now. So I'm doing great. And again, it's hard to not feel a little bit guilty about it.
It's the Canadian part of you checking in, I guess.
My Canadian is showing.
It's okay.
But you didn't say sorry.
I did apologize. It was implied sorry, but
Okay.
yeah. I did spend time in the States. So it was only implied as a sorry.
Bridget, you're doing pretty happy for yourself. I know that much, so that's good.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm going back on lockdown, so there's that. Um, there's a couple reasons for that. I went and had my checkup and got glasses and all that stuff this week. But I figured if my doctor is back to wearing not only masks, but eye protection and a face shield, and he's vaccinated, there's a good reason for it. And
Yeah.
then I found out that my sib from another crib that I used to live with from second grade until seventh has COVID, and hers is pretty severe, but she's not in the hospital. But her husband, who I was stationed with when we were in the Air Force, is about to be moved to ICU. He's not doing very well at all. But they didn't get the vaccine, so. And they're out in California.
Which everything is on fire out there anyway.
Yeah, so I was, I'm just kind of like, wow. I'm going to be working remotely, but I'm like, is there really any reason for me to go out with the rates going up like they are and the people who are not vaccinated and then we're hearing of breakthrough infections? Nah.
No.
I'm being a hermit anyway, so there you go. I was on lockdown for 14 months. I can do another 14.
Yeah, there's that. And Tech, how you holding?
Well, in the spirit of Nuka here, half my family is Catholic, the other half is Jewish, so I end up feeling guilty a lot.
But you're well fed, so there's that.
Well, that's thanks to the Gevelta fish. I'm a dad. I'm allowed to make dad jokes, for crying out loud.
See, you say that.
I do say that.
Yeah, up until the point where I finally outdo you. But
But no, how am I doing? Dark is a good word. So what's really weird is, and this has been, this is something that's been going on for a long time. The people whose opinion matter with regards to like analysis of my mental health and things like that have always come around to the statement of something akin to, you're goofy, but you're very well grounded. You're very well grounded. You're very sane. You're very on point, whatever. It's like, dude, I am the utter goofball. I don't even see where this is coming from. But so I've got the dark thoughts. I've got the dark feelings. I have all the negative stuff. But at the same time, there's things to do. They need to get done. There's it's like you might have the captain of a submarine, and the submarine's in real bad shape. The captain has to keep his cool, or her cool, sorry, because everybody's looking to the captain for inspiration, know that it's going to be okay, they're going to get through it. And if the captain breaks, everybody breaks. Kind of like the linchpin. So right now, I'm basically mentally in that state of, there's a lot of negativity going on in my brain right now. Hold my beer. I got shit to do.
I gotcha. And for the record, there's a very good reason why Tech is grounded. He works in IT, occasionally with hardware. He needs to be.
Mm-hmm. And I know which wire on the socket you're supposed to hold on to.
Yeah, that doesn't help when you have a bunch of U-racks come down and take off part of your finger. There's a story behind that, and I'll explain about it another time.
My worst server room accident that involved physical injury to myself was, I had a 1U server, so very thin server, but they're still heavy. It didn't lock into place. So me and another guy we each had one side of it, because we were just playing the game of, why bother throwing our backs out regardless of how light or heavy these things are. So my side didn't clip in and it started to fall. He let go of his side. And my brain's going, well, in very fast motion. Our brains are really great at making a whole bunch of thought processes in a split second. And mine was, he's holding on to it. I better get it before it hits him and, breaks his fingers or hits him in the knee or drops on his foot. So I reach for it. He's let go, and the side of it is sharp. It's like, so I christened the server with my own blood.
I didn't
And
realize
he,
that would require blood sacrifice. I mean, jeez.
well, sometimes you sacrifice a chicken, but
Yeah,
sometimes
so-
human blood is a requirement.
That's some technomancy right there.
You realize once it's had a taste of blood, you can't just shut down the server until it's had more. You know that.
Yeah, well,
It's like
I'm
every other good
positive
blade.
The guy who was helping me as a sacrifice to his bank account, he bought me around, so it was all cool.
Good call. Good call.
Sorry, Bridge. I didn't mean if I was cutting you off. I was just trying to finish the.
Oh, no,
Partner-
I cut you
word.
off.
You're fine.
All right.
I'm used to getting cut off. I live in Maryland. The drivers down here suck.
Yeah. Well,
Why would you ever do 5 under the speed limit in the left-hand lane? I really wish they would put into the books a law like they have in other states where if you're in the left lane and you're just sitting there, you get a ticket.
Yeah,
I'd
it's on
love
the
to see
books.
that.
It's on the books here, but it's not enforced.
It's not here.
yeah. When we go ahead and we talk about bad driving, I'll tell my Boston story again. Not tonight.
Chicago is downright scary.
Is Chicago? Is not Chicago. Is Chicago? Sorry, got a song stuck in my head now.
Yeah.
Earworm.
No, to drive in Chicago requires like heavy duty tranks, like benzos or something. It's awful.
I'm not allowed to take tranquilizers. That's what beer's for.
We'll come back to that later. Maybe even next week. I'll explain later.
I
Anyway,
won't be on next week. No offense.
none taken.
I have to go out of town.
All right, that's fair. Anyway, let me get you guys rolling over here. So, with 5 minutes on the clock, let me get to your 5-minute freestyle. That starts right now. Proofs. I hate the word proof. I hate the word. I've talked about this ad nauseum. Why am I bringing this topic up again? Simple. Because the word proof has only one legitimate use, and that is in mathematics. Everything else has got wiggle room to it. Mathematics does not. To borrow a phrase from a friend of mine, it's either frickin' right or it's frickin' wrong. There is no two ways about it. So, when somebody wants to go ahead and talk about, well, prove something is, yeah, we've got a problem here because that's not a thing until you're talking about mathematics. Now, we know full well that there are mathematical proofs for stuff that is otherwise flights of fancy, theoretical physics, for instance. Yes, stuff can be proven to be a certain way that just don't make any real sense that we know of. For instance, the idea of a wormhole in space-time in order to go from one place to another that's way the hell out by crossing over a doorway. Yes, it has been proven that these things do exist. The problem is the proof also involves exotic matter with negative mass. Okay, so that fits the description. It solves for X, so to speak. But the problem is there is no known way for something like that to exist. Ergo, it might not be. Now, the fact that we've discovered antimatter when all we ever knew was matter, yeah, okay, maybe there is something out there that we just don't know about, but the proof mathematically says it should happen. The problem is trying to find out, is there something that's actually going to fit the bill? Now, to that end, that is why proof is only relevant in mathematics, because I am sick and tired of the people who don't want to use the vaccinations that are out there for COVID. The vaccination numbers are simply indisputable by anything other than, well, let's call it what it is. Willful ignorance. There's simply no other way. Yes, I know, statistics can be tweaked with and presented in certain ways to be fashionable or to lean a specific way for something. Lord knows, when my wife was doing account management for inbound telephone sales, there were certain ways that you could actually take the numbers and present them in a certain way. And she was the one that told me, data doesn't lie, but statistics can. Well, there's a problem when we start looking at what's going on with vaccinations. The statistics don't lie. The statistics are almost within 1 percentage point, almost all of the current new COVID infections are from people who have not been vaccinated. Let me say that again. Within 1 percentage point, people who have not gotten stuck are the ones who are going in because they're sick. And that's after over 600,000 Americans alone got killed by this damn thing. I don't even know what the numbers are in Canada, or in Great Britain, or in Italy, or anywhere the hell else. It doesn't really much matter. The number of infections and deaths far outstrips the risks, the minor risks of the vaccination. You want to go out there and tell me, oh, I don't need a mumps vaccine? Bullshit, you do. You don't need for rubella or whooping cough? Bullshit, you do. And you got them early on. The fact that you don't remember it is not material. What is that if you don't get vaccinated, you have better than a 99% chance, if you get infected, that you're going to see a medical person. And at that point, good luck rolling the bones. This is episode 369 on the docket, Your Honor. First off, nice. Second, hey, Teach. Because, Dr. Nuka's an actual professor, man. This is a big opportunity in the middle of, one of the most insane school years that we've had, over the last 2 years. Somebody who's dealing in higher education, who's, rip-roaring ready to go, and some of the stuff that he's posted about how his students have been like, holy shit, this is great. What better opportunity to find out, from somebody who's doing the job, how important it is and what we can hope to encourage in the people that are coming up into these ranks. So with the other stuff out of the way, I think now is about as good a time as any to get over to the horrible scopes, and then we can work with the rest of it all, and we'll have a good time for the rest of the night. So, folks, like I said, it is time for the horrible scopes. Those of you that know what your astrological signs are, cool. Those of you that don't, copy off of somebody else's homework. It doesn't really much matter. You can bribe us if you want a better one next time. Good luck with that.
I have a problem. I rolled my die and it came up negative I.
Yeah. See, now your problem is your horrible scope then is going to be given to you by Dr. Tyson. You'll go with that one. Aries, you will be immune to earworms this week. Use this time productively to concentrate on important details like how the entire Bob Ross video collection, over 400 episodes on DVD, would cost either $1,270.69 US, full price, or $635.35. On special now at bobross.com. So, making a $20 donation to get the PBS book tote doesn't sound like such a big deal now, does it? As an aside, I figured out how much the collection would weigh if you had gotten it on VHS tape. Over 25 kilograms, over 100 tapes. Where would you keep it? Good luck.
Wow. That's a lot of tapes.
I just want to say, if you're a Bob Ross fan, there is a board game for that called Bob Ross, The Art of Chill. And if you have not played it, it's awesome.
I've never heard of that. I'll have to look that up later.
It really is. It's a real thing. It's awesome.
Taurus. People who say they understand quantum mechanics certainly do not understand quantum mechanics. People who think a quantum leap is a big deal really don't understand quantum mechanics. And any time the term quantum is used in marketing something, just hear in your head a photonic flashlight. That's how stupid it is.
I don't know. Sam Beckett might have something to say. Gemini, kiddie pools are great for you and your pet to lounge in these weekends. Your biggest problem is going to be getting one home from the store without it blowing off your car roof. Consider using a 3D printer to make one yourself. Sorry. Okay, just to let the audience know, the reason why I find that so funny is I just bought myself a 3D printer.
We need clarification. Are you going to be making the kiddie pool with the 3D printer or the kid and pet?
Why not both?
Okay.
You got a 3D printer. You can do anything.
Amen.
I guess that makes it my turn.
It is.
Yes,
sir.
All right. Cancer Moon Child, you got this one coming. No one likes a braggart, Cancer. Oh, look at me. What happened during my month? Just a little something called the moon landing and Live Aid. You had nothing to do with those events, Cancer. The closest you've been to space was an escalator, and the only musical instrument you know how to play? The bop it. Get over yourself.
Yeah, I was specifically thinking of the dead escalators at Anthrocon because, I mean,
I love the fact that the whole space thing, that they the news recently announced that they redid the regs so that Jeff Bezos can't be declared an astronaut. And I'm thinking, why would he even potentially be considered an astronaut when he's got the most advanced technology that we have possible to do the same thing? Well, actually, to do less than what NASA did 50 years ago. I mean, if they find that very impressive, I've got a flashlight with an LED bulb in it. You know.
Yeah,
it's a photonic flashlight.
Yeah, the part of the reason why I was really upset because I was really waiting for did he beat the 100-kilometer line? Because for me, that's it. The reason why Jeff Bezos and company, so to speak, do not get the astronaut wings is because the craft was operated remotely from the ground. Basically, it made it technically a giant rocket-powered drone and not an autonomous vehicle.
That's cheating.
It's Jeff Bezos.
Well, yeah.
I mean, he cheats all his workers out of, pay and benefits and
life. But
like living. Yeah.
You will come back to that. Leo, time to consider what games to buy from Steam, Leo. The top 10 most popular include Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Dota 2, Grand Theft Auto V, Grand Theft Auto 5, okay, sorry, Rust, Apex Legends, which, by the way, we're not being sponsored by, so screw you guys, and Team Fortress 2. And you suck at all of them. Stick with Pikmin 3 and you'll be more relaxed.
That was kind of harsh. Virgo.
Fuck them, I don't care.
It's time to change your spending habits. You can afford these purchases. That's not the issue. The customer service reps that have to call and ask if you really bought a 55-gallon drum of personal lubricant from Amazon are having panic attacks. They play rock, paper, scissors just to see who has to make the call this time. Please think of the poor phone jockeys.
That is a real thing you can order from Amazon. Yes, a 55-gallon drum. And yes, it does come with an included hand pump. You're welcome.
Libra, we're sorry to hear about your workplace accident. You tried squeezing, then pulling the pin on the fire extinguisher, and blew out your ACL just like the old Army vet did last week. HR says you'll be out for a few weeks too. On the bright side, it was your left shoulder, so that's okay.
Sorry, I had my mute on. Scorpio, you hate the winter weather. Why are you planning a skiing trip in the middle of the summer when you would never do it in January? Go water skiing instead. Worst case, you fall forward, forget to close your eyes, and you get water sloshing around in your eyeballs and in their sockets. At least you won't run into a tree and break your leg.
I had that happen to me once. We'll talk about it another time. Sagittarius, you've gotten so old that some of your treasured DVD box sets are from companies that no longer exist. Now comes the ethical dilemma. If the copyright holder no longer exists on those, does anybody even want to pirate those movies? They sell for $3 on eBay now, so I'm guessing no.
Capricorn. Here's a YouTube series you might want to check out titled True Facts. You might want to start off with the ostrich. As it states, the ostrich is like the bird you would turn into if you met a dick genie. Not a dick genie, that's something else. So if you wish for things from a genie, be specific.
Yeah, like, nobody ever truly wishes for a 12-inch pianist. Aquarius. Dealing with troublesome neighbors isn't easy, but we can help you. All we'll need is a fire extinguisher, a $30 gift card to Wendy's, and a mid-60s Buick, preferably a Wildcat. Now that the East River in New York is all cleared up, it'll be easier to make a car go away. You know what we mean? Okay, we'll be in touch. Bye-bye. Ciao.
I'm going to screw this one up. Pisces. There are two movie quotes, separated by almost 15 years, both meaning the same thing. The first one goes, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father? Prepare to die." The second, "My name is Maximus Decimus Meritus, commander of the armies of the North, general of the Felix Legions, and loyal servant to the true emperor, Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next." Now, with that inspiration, what's your movie quote going to be?
You know, as I was looking up for movie quotes, it suddenly dawned on me that these two lines were basically the same damn thing. And I still, even though my Friday night co-host said, the first one's actually more elegant, I don't know which one actually is.
But I love the actor.
I'm afraid for I'm afraid for the answer, but which one?
I've heard the Inigo Montoya.
Okay, Mandy Patinkin.
Yeah,
He's good.
I like
I'm a
him.
Tick fan myself,
So those are your horrible scopes for this week. Remember, if you like what you got, that's completely accidental. I didn't really do any. I didn't do anything for you. But if you want to send us a couple of dollars and say, "Hey, I want this sign to be given nice treatment next time," yeah, maybe I'll pay attention to that. I've been known to do that before.
I mean, Shujin will do it for cheap beer.
No,
No?
no. Nuka, one of the things that I do week to week usually is I try different I try different beers just to see if I find something I like. A couple weeks ago, I had, let's see if I can remember what it was. It was I forget what all of the stuff that was to it, but it was a habanero pepper beer, IPA.
Nice.
You can put a lot of things in beer. I don't know with that one. I'm
Nope.
Let me go ahead and put the hard no on that one.
No,
No.
that one was. Now, if it was a Mexican night, I could see doing it. In the future, just like I want to have something to drink. No.
See, the beer is what you have with the habanero wings. The beer is like the contrast to it. You don't put that in the
In
beer.
beer.
Unless you're having a toasted cheese sandwich, in which case then it works.
Yeah, it was.
And I don't think you were too hip on the milkshake one either.
No, that one, that one wasn't that good. So you understand the only reason why they called it a milkshake IPA was because they used lactic sugar.
Yeah, lactose.
That's the only reason why they called it milkshake, because they were using. Yeah,
He's lactose.
it was basically, it came down to why.
I think you poured that one out. You couldn't even finish it.
I did.
Since we're talking movie quotes, I hear that and I'm reminded of the quote from Jurassic Park, overquoted. You're so preoccupied with whether you should or whether you could, you didn't stop to think whether you should.
There is something to be said for that. There really is something to be said for that. So we'll keep that in mind. So let's now that we've spent way too long in like the having a little bit of fun, let's actually have some fun now. So, Dr. Nuka, let's have a real quick rundown on some of the things that you've done, starting off with the fact that you got Sharon involved with, hey, maybe we should ask all these weirdos questions to find out about themselves.
Guilty as charged, yeah. I'm not sure if you're wanting the story of it or just the.
Well, basically, just a real quick rundown on some of the areas that have been, hey, let me tell you, I started blah, and now look at the things that I've done now that actually almost fit on a business card now.
I started as a lowly grad student in social psychology. I had to pick a topic for my thesis, so I decided to just make my hobby my topic, which is not advisable to anyone. I started studying furries. I was not the first to study furries, but I did work with the person who was, and I sort of helped co-found what we now know as Fur Science. I've since then published, I think I'm up to about 70 or 80 peer-reviewed scientific journal articles on that subject and many others related to it. We're working on a book right now, or an updated version of a book all about the research. The work's been used sort of by news stations and anyone wants to talk about furries in the media, they contact us first. So
or at least they should.
They've been pretty good about, more often than not, they get in touch with us one way or another, or they get in touch with someone who tells them to get in touch with us. So I did 2 separate interviews just this week about that show Sexy Beasts that came out, and people saying, is this a furry thing? And so we had to say, no, this is not a furry thing.
Dude, I watched the premise for that and I knew it was not a furry thing.
Yeah.
I was like, they're just wearing costumes to look like animals while they do basically anonymous interviews.
I mean, if I had a nickel for every time I was asked to talk about furries on a subject that I should not be talking about furries on, I wouldn't have
you have
to
a lot of nickels.
I could retire early.
Well, hey, they haven't gotten rid of the nickel in Canada yet, so that there's a bonus yet.
I was gonna say, on a positive side, at least by going to you and talking about this stuff, they're not helping to propagate a misunderstanding of the community.
That's one of the reasons why I don't get too bothered by it. I'm like, you know what? I'd rather than be using the data, even if it means I have to sort of walk them through it and hold their hand, than have them just decide to blow it off. What's been really sort of something we're proud of at First Science is the fact that 10 years ago, when we were first getting started, they could have just kind of pretended we didn't exist and the research wasn't there, but there's so much of it there now, and so many people sort of push the research out there on our behalf that you can't ignore it anymore. That anyone who tries to put out an ignorant story just looks ignorant.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, Nuka and I, we've traditionally, touched base on stuff at Anthrocon, which is technically the furry equivalent of Mecca in North America. It's not the biggest anymore, but it's still one of the biggest. But I mean, for us, it's like I said, it's almost like family reunion, get together, touch base, and it has always absolutely floored me when we get to talking about how much stuff has changed, being able to grab all of the vast amount of statistics, the number of volunteers that actually fill out the questionnaires. And then I think the last time that we had you out, one of the big things that we were talking about was how to even ask the right questions in the first place. And that is something that I kind of want to sideways track through with you, because like I said, the real concentration at this point is for your teaching. Oh, right, your current teaching gig.
Oh yes, I teach now. So up until very recently, I was sort of in academic hell. A lot of times you get your Ph.D. And a lot of folks end up, especially in my field, end up leaving the field of academia because there are a number of people fighting for very few positions. When I was on the job market, I applied to 127 positions and got one interview. Just to put into perspective, and it wasn't because I was a crappy candidate either. It's just that competitive that it's mind-numbingly difficult to get a job. I was one of the very lucky ones. I managed to snag a job, and up until very recently, I was doing that as an assistant professor, and then just a few months ago, I was promoted to associate professor, and I am now tenured. So that means I have some job security finally, which means more than any paycheck in the world. Just knowing that I kind of, in an era like this where job security is something fewer and fewer people have, I consider myself completely lucky. I don't downplay for a second how lucky I am to get to work the job that I truly love and to have it there for me.
Yeah,
I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, except possibly being able to be a Mythbuster.
Well, the job is currently open, so
True.
I mean, there might be some like copyright issues, but deal with that later.
We can work with that.
So what I was going to say was that I kind of want to take kind of a sideways track parallel with the point, like I said, from last time out that I really remember, really harping on, which is trying to figure out how to ask the right questions. And now that you're not taking surveys and you're actually teaching subjects, now the script is flipped, if you will. Now it's a matter of how do you impart the knowledge in order to gain the interest to ask the questions from the students. And I have to imagine that is incredibly challenging for somebody who has been traditionally, look, I want to find out from you, give me the answers, and now you kind of got to go, okay, here are the answers, I'm waiting for you to kind of give me the questions that lead on to the next answers so I know where to steer you guys.
I think so. Well, there's your point. I still do data collection. We still do surveys and stuff every year. So I've never stopped doing that.
Well, yes.
But in terms of the teaching, I actually think that they go very hand in hand. I think the worst professors are the ones who are convinced they've got the answers, and now my job is to just dispense knowledge at your face. I think the best professors are the ones who view teaching as an opportunity to learn. I can't tell you the number of times when I've been teaching something and a student will say, well, actually, I read a paper in another class that says that you're actually wrong about this. And it's a wonderful opportunity for me to go, oh, like I don't know everything in my field. It's too much to know everything at a glance. And so I kind of view it as taking students along with me and let's go learn this stuff together. And along the way, they give me opportunities to learn and to rethink my assumptions, just as I have to do every time we gather 1,000 surveys on furries. And I go, okay, what are they going to show me that I was wrong about this time? So I think a good professor treats it like a learning opportunity.
Okay, I'm trying to remember who was it. It was Socrates, if I remember right. I'm trying to remember if it was Socrates or Aristotle who went and took students out and was just like, okay, ask me questions about stuff and I will tell you what I know and we will find the questions to try to find the stuff that we don't know. And those kinds of teachers who are very much of the, there's still more to learn. Cool, let's go. I absolutely love that about you.
Well, it's wonderful. The even going back to what you were saying during your 5-minute bit there, it ties nicely to this idea of anyone who thinks they've got definitive proof of anything. Anyone who I mean, it's the wrong question to ask in many ways, and anyone who believes it's a thing you have to fight against when you're a professor, because it's so tempting to say, I've got the Ph.D, I'm doctor, I'm professor now. So that means I have learned all the knowledge to learn, and now my job is to passively dispense it. It's the completely wrong attitude to have. The best professors should be humble and realize I learn by asking questions of you, questions that even I'm still learning myself too. But yeah, I know, I've read more papers than perhaps my students have, but yeah, it's all of learning is this constant need to better yourself, to constantly be searching for more answers and better answers, and not just being convinced, well, I've done enough research, I've got my proof, my sufficient proof, and I'm done. That sort of attitude gets us into the kind of trouble we're seeing with this rise in anti-intellectualism.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I want to, no pun intended, want to end up hitting on when we get a little bit further. But really quickly, would you mind recounting the story that you had given out a little while back? You had written up about one particular student who you had a talk with them about something, I believe it was in the furry fandom, and suddenly it was just like lights go off and they're just go on and they're just like, oh, wait a minute, this is actually really cool. This is something I would have known about. And I'm trying to remember which story that was in particular and when it was, to kind of stir you a little bit better.
I admit it's not, I can't think of a single instance because it actually happens more and more now. One of the things I make a point of doing, because the school I teach at, Bishop's University, is a rather small school. It's about 3,000 students, which is small by university standards. And I get a reputation, right? When a school that small, everyone kind of, I'm the furry prof, right? I'm the one who, I'll make a point every semester of wearing a fursuit to one of my lectures, just because at this point, students expect it, right? So when you take the class of the furry prof, like, okay, when's he gonna put on the suit? Everyone's kind of waiting for it, say the line. And so I indulge them once per semester. Okay, we'll do the furry lecture. I'll tell you all about my research, and then we'll get it all out of our systems. And during those lectures, I have an opportunity to talk to 120 students at a time about the work I do, and without fail, I always have anywhere from 3 or 4 to as many as a dozen students come up to me afterwards and say, like, wow, like I didn't know any of that about furries. And I'll occasionally have a student say, oh, like I maybe I am one and I didn't even realize, I didn't know there was a name for it. And so it's gone from being this sort of like one isolated incident, this thing that happened one time, to a fairly common or recurring thing now at this point. And it's incredibly rewarding to be able to see students kind of clue in and getting, oh, it suddenly makes sense now, this thing that I didn't understand before. Yes, I really like that, and it's hard to every prof wants to talk just about their own research, and so it's kind of hard for me to confine it to just one lecture per semester. But I realize you got to strike that balance between giving students what they want, but also not belaboring the point.
If you haven't had it happen already, I'm guessing you may or may not have already prepared yourself. If it's happened, what did you do? If not, how are you preparing yourself for it? A student comes up to you and goes, "Sorry, I can't take your class anymore. My parents said that if I do, my funding's cut off." Because maybe they mentioned to their parents that, yeah, my professor's a furry, and their parents are like, "Oh, that's the devil," whatever, you know.
So I'm in a pretty progressive part of Canada at a pretty progressive liberal arts university. So that particular thing hasn't happened, although I do occasionally, usually once a semester, I'll have at least one student who, at some point, one of the things I do in my classes, I have anonymous feedback throughout the semester. So I'll say, here is a link you can post anonymously, any feedback. I won't know who you are. And they'll almost always, I remember being told one time, oh, who's this fur fag teaching my class? You know, a good thing to say to your professor. It's sort of water off my back. I'm not bothered by it. On the one hand, I realize it's just, I mean, after teaching a lecture about here's what furry is, if they're perpetuating misconceptions about it, I'm like, you just didn't hear the lecture. So you're just kind of showing how little you pay attention to my class. But also for every one of those students, I've got like, you know, 50 or 100 students who've kind of, I've made a difference in a positive way. So that doesn't really bother me too much. And if you want to be really sort of snarky and cynical, they can drop my class all they want. They pay for it already. So it doesn't bother me in the slightest. They're out the money. And ultimately the classes I teach are the ones that you have to take to get into higher psychology. So if I'm a filter that keeps that kind of crap out of the field, then I've done my job.
That's awesome.
Yeah, on the opposite side of that, though, it has to. I have to expect that there are also a number of students, because of that, like you said, 4, 5, a dozen, where suddenly there is more engagement after this happens, where they maybe take it a little bit more seriously. Maybe it's more fun for them. Is that something that you see happen?
Yeah, so one of the things that's really exciting about being able to teach that is so I'm in like the very narrow slice of most of psychology. When you go into psychology and you get an advanced degree, is to go into clinical and counseling, which we absolutely need more of. But sort of part of the problem with that is it kind of overshadows like the small percentage of psychologists, like 5 or 10% of psychologists who like me who do research. And so for a lot of students, research is that boring, crappy thing you have to do to get to the clinical stuff, the stuff they want to do. And it's exciting to be able to find a couple of students who realize, oh, research can be fun. You can research like interesting things that are relevant to you. And so it's exciting to show students that no, research doesn't have to be this dry, boring thing. You can research like fun stuff or stuff that you find interesting. And just sort of showing them that that's a thing you can do. Kind of likes that spark for them. And I've had a number of students who sort of shifted gears and gone into a more research direction because they didn't realize that was an option. They thought the only thing they could study was, well, 50,000 people are studying self-esteem, so I guess I got to pile onto that train and be just another self-esteem researcher, which is not to hate on self-esteem researchers. So that's been very rewarding for me to be able to do that.
Teaching them that they don't have to be the mall clipboard person. Would you like to take a survey person?
Exactly. It can be fun.
And see, I make that joke because technically, whenever he is that person, along with a half dozen other folks from the first science group, and the best and funniest part about it is, usually the clipboards are sitting and waiting on the tabletop, and people voluntarily come over and it's like, oh yeah, it's that time again. All right, you got a pencil? Cool. All right, cool. I'll be back in a little bit.
Yep. Well, yeah, and another thing that helps too, not with that, but going back to the classroom thing, it's if I've learned anything now from teaching, which are now students, which are now Zoomers, I guess, the Zoomer generation. Um, Zoomers, perhaps more than any other generation, can smell bullshit from a mile away. They can smell corporate speak. They can smell HR speak. They know it.
Oh,
They
they would hate
recognize it.
my job.
Well, they hate it. And so one of the things that I've really been able to resonate with students, because I come across as authentic, right? So I'll wear a t-shirt and shorts to class. I'm a furry. I got this weird hobby. And when you get down to it, most of us have weird hobbies, and I'm just unabashed about it. And it resonates with them, and far more than wearing a suit and a tie and coming to class does. So I think that by presenting yourself authentically to students, they'll listen to what you have to say a lot more than if you just sort of treat it as the dry subject that the dry, stuffy 65-year-old professor is reading to us.
Yeah. Weird hobbies? Yeah, no, I don't have any weird hobbies myself. I don't know what you're talking about.
I definitely don't have any of those.
Weird hobbies? No. I just happen to be 3D printing a pen stand for my Sharpie.
Well,
It's okay.
I do have a question. You said that your students who sign up for your class, it's like, oh, it's that furry professor. When you decide to show up to class in a fursuit, is that just on a random day during the semester where they don't know ahead of time when you're going to do it? I mean, to me, that'd be a smart ploy. So
It would be
show up late.
exactly the same thing I was thinking.
No, so they can see ahead in the syllabus. If they're especially keen, they'll look ahead in the syllabus, and near the end, I do my lecture on fandoms and fan research. And they can kind of sort of put together the dots. I think when I first taught it, it was like at the school, it was a surprise. No one was expecting me to show up in the suit. But word travels through the grapevine. Enough people know people who've taken a class that they all know, okay, when's the furry lecture coming up? When's he going to show up in the suit? And they're all kind of waiting for it. So it's kind of hard you can't really surprise them. Although one of the things I want to do next year, I have roommates now who are furries. And what I want to do is have one of my roommates show up in my class in my fursuit and just show up at the front of the class and set everything up, whatever, and just stand in front of the class, like with all them waiting for something to happen. And then me come running into the class and go, sorry, I'm late, just to throw them off a little bit. But we'll see if I do that.
That would be funny.
Well, there is
Keep on
always
the
the
toes.
beginning of April every year, so
But they're expecting it then.
Yes. So you say that, and now I'm going back to my junior high years. A math teacher I did not have had a little air horn in his filing cabinet. Once a year, I should say, it got used. Just to scare off when the junior high school kids, were a little bit too rowdy and didn't want to pay attention. And it'd go over to the thing.
It's one thing I should mention too, that this kind of brings us up. Really, if one thing defines my career, and one of the reasons why I say it's not a great choice for a lot of people, I got really lucky. You have to constantly straddle the line between professionalism and being a goofball, because I can definitely get away with a certain amount of being a goofball, but you never want to veer too far in the direction of not being taken seriously. I've often kind of said that if there's a lesson to my research, is that we need to take leisure incredibly seriously, right? So it's one of the reasons why when I do news reports or interviews, the collar comes off. I'm Dr. Courtney Plante. I don't do my interviews in a fursuit, right? Because we struggle enough with the idea that furry is ridiculous and silly. So you have to sort of balance hey, let's have fun with this, but also I need you to take it seriously as well, because this is legitimate research. And so finding that balance is a little bit tricky. I guess maybe helping to schedule it and helping students expect it maybe contributes to this is the fun day, but also it's still a class. We're still learning real research. Give it the gravity it deserves.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's kind of the opposite problem of what you were talking about earlier. You don't want to be a stuffed collar. You don't want to be a stuffed shirt. but you
Yep.
don't want to be you don't want to be a ragdoll uh, bozo clown doll at the same time.
And you'll never perfectly straddle that line. Like if I've learned anything from teaching now these big classes, is you there's so much variability in students that you'll always, even if you're straddling that line in a wonderful way, you'll always have people who fall outside of it. So I definitely have, every semester I'll get a couple of students who say I don't appreciate his lack of professionalism. I'll also get a handful of students who maybe they get a little too chummy, or they get a little too, oh, this is a fun class, I don't have to study, I don't have to take this seriously. So it's trying to find that line and trying as best as possible to stop students from straying too far from that, from the delicate balance I'm trying to craft. And I'm not always successful at it. Every semester is a learning opportunity and a chance to sit down and say, okay, what worked, what didn't work.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that. Now, what you said earlier about the school, it is effectively it's a liberal arts more than, I mean, I don't remember how they presented themselves on the website when I was trying to look up information, because I was going to actually pronounce the place, and then I looked at it and I'm just like, you know what? No, I'm not going to insult anybody by trying. But
So Bishop's University, yeah.
Well, yes, that part. Okay, you know what? Screw you, man. That part I could say.
You mean like Lennox, like this in the city of Lennoxville or Sherbrooke or whatever, or the estuary regions?
Yeah, I was looking at a couple of terms, and apparently I got myself all into a tangle and a tizzy for some stupid reason. I don't know. I've not been sleeping real well for a couple.
That wasn't me poking fun at you, by the way. I
know. Not any more than I've done doing myself.
Another question for you.
Any opportunity to interrupt me, do it.
Sorry, I haven't said much. I've been good.
You usually do that, and I keep trying to pull you in.
Anyway, I was going to ask. I realize that there's a cultural difference between people down here and people up there. You're kind of like the neighbors that are living over the meth lab, just waiting for it to explode. But is there any kind of an issue in Canada with anti-intellectualism or thinking that education is elitist?
That is a great question, and that's something that I've kind of wondered too, and I'm afraid for part of the answers.
So there's a real tendency, I think in general too, we have to remember this. Instances of anti-intellectualism are there in higher education, in culture in general. It's really easy to blow them out of proportion. It's really easy to see an ignorant social media post or to see an ignorant rally and to say, oh, well, that, this country's going to hell in a handbasket and everyone's stupid and everyone hate, It's worth noting that despite how easy it is to fall into that trap of doom and gloom, I remain optimistic, both because we are still, every generation is becoming more and more educated than the one that came before it. And the fact that that true anti-intellectualism is still very much in the minority. It doesn't mean it's not a problem. It doesn't mean it's not something we should try to stamp out. But even looking in my own class, for example, I can remember I taught a psychology of sex class in the last year. And out of the 120 students, I had one student where I had genuine problems with them pushing back against and now, to be clear, I have no problem with students pushing back or questioning or challenging. The problem I have is when they do so in a very disingenuous way, right? With the problem is when a person says, I want to see your evidence, and then you show them the evidence and they say, well, no, I want different evidence, or I want better evidence, without ever putting forth their own evidence. So it's a very disingenuous, position to take. So I only had that, one student in my psychology of sex class where that happened. The rest of the students were very much open-minded, were very willing to listen, and many of them changed their minds from their initial positions. So I remain optimistic, but not naive to the fact that anti-intellectualism is out there. I think if something has changed in the last call it 5 to 6 years, it's been that anti-intellectuals have more of a platform. It's easier to hear them. I think they've always been around, but we are hearing them more. We've given them a bullhorn in some respects, but I don't think they'll win in the end.
You're more optimistic than I am.
Well, I mean,
Then again, you
It's a
know,
difference of
you're in
culture.
Canada. You didn't vote in Oompa Loompa Mussolini for
well,
Parliament.
well, don't forget. You know, they did put in a Toronto way, Doug Ford. So you know, I mean,
Hey, he did a better job than Trump would have.
uh,
I'm sorry,
I mean-
I'm willing to take that chance, dude.
I mean, even so, we'll take the example of the United States. The younger, the older people tend to be the ones who make the bad decision. No offense to older people, but it tends to be predominantly older voters who vote that way. You look at the younger generation, and they're the generation that's kind of chomping at the bit, waiting for a chance to change things.
yeah, and like you said earlier, they're also the ones who are smelling the bullshit from Piscataway, New Jersey, and they know full well, dude, really.
Yeah. They stopped believing what corporations have said a long time ago. They stopped believing. Now, the problem is there's a bit of apathy on their part, and I think it's a matter of needing to rally them out of their apathy. But in the long run, they'll win. In the long run, they will demographically end up being the ones who make the decisions. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, especially with better immune systems.
That too. They got that going for them too.
Yeah, there is that.
I mean, statistically, if you want to see who's getting COVID vaccinations and who's the most likely to die from COVID, maybe you find your optimism in those numbers.
Yeah,
Out here that are getting it and dying now are in their 20s.
yeah, and we've already seen the stuff that have said that you take a look at how did people vote and vaccination rates in those areas, and there is again, the statistics don't lie. The data ain't lying this time. Unfortunately.
I know that one problem that my husband has had here, and he's taught at several different universities in different states, and so it's not tied to just one state. But he teaches philosophy and humanities courses and things like that mostly. But his biggest issue, besides many of his students being functionally illiterate, is they get very upset with him that they can't use the Bible as a source. He wants peer-reviewed, journals and things like that. And every semester, it's not just one or two, but it's several students will complain to his boss that he's trying to turn them into an atheist or something stupid like that.
Yeah, hold that piece, because this is also kind of leading us into an area I wanted to get into anyway. Actually, one of the biggest reasons I wanted to do this. Tack on to that the very conservative, lowercase c, conservative, anti-intellectual yelling points, not arguments, because arguments need to actually have some kind of factual basis, where they yell and scream about higher education is just a way for liberals to make more liberals. And I want to kind of tack the two of those together for you, because knowing full well, yes, it's a liberal arts scare quotes, liberal arts college.
That's what it is. It's call it what it is. That's what it is.
Yes.
It's not a dirty word.
Yeah. No. But it's a matter of that. That's one of those things that would typically be used. Yeah. And admittedly,
Pretty liberal hippies.
Yeah. Now, admittedly, before I go ahead and let you, give the right answer, we need to make sure that everybody understands ahead of time, before this comes, before the answer comes through this, we know and accept and absolutely adore the fact that Canuckistan is far and away more liberal in how it deals with policy and people than over here in you know, Gunistan. I want to make sure that everybody understands that. As an example, really quickly, when the question came up of gay marriage, and I'm going to make this the real Reader's Digest version. Okay, so about this about this thing where people who love people of the same sex want to get married together, should we allow that? Well, what does it say in the law? Doesn't really say anything, so it's not against the law. Not currently. Okay, they can do it. Next. That's a very short, very, 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 very short version from how I understood it. So, with that,
For the Canadian version, right?
no, because the Canadian version's actually got tactical stealth gooses, and we don't want to be dealing with that. But anyway, now that I've completely derailed a good portion of all this, the idea that you are just bringing up, you are just cloning out new liberal minds.
Yeah.
I don't like the way that you're doing the evil hand thing here.
No, I love the question. I love when people ask the question because it gives the game away. It completely gives the game away. Because think about it. Think what they're saying is, what do you teach in schools? Okay, well, we teach data. Like I go through my classes. Okay, I teach scientific method. I teach critical thinking. I teach peer review. I teach statistics. I teach research methodology. I teach these things, right? And they're saying, oh, that's making liberals. So by teaching people facts and data and science, I'm making them liberal. What is that saying about their position? I mean, that's an argument I would not be making. Like playing devil's advocate for them and trying to steel man them. Like, bro, that is not the argument I would be making. It's not the killer argument you think it is. The more education, I've heard people say this unironically. Oh, the more education people have, the more liberal they become. And I'm like, that's not the part you're supposed to say out loud, yo. I wouldn't be admitting that.
But people in Texas have come out and said that.
Yeah.
Or at least the GOP have. They had in their official party platform that they actively discouraged higher ordered thinking skills.
Which again gives away the game. I'm like, this is the part you're not supposed to say out loud. And it's kind of ironic that they lack the critical thinking ability to realize what a piss poor argument that is.
Yeah.
Maybe if they
Sorry.
So go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, perhaps if they'd gone to some of those higher education institutions and learned how to argue, learned how to use data and statistics, they might realize what a bad argument that is.
My favorite piss poor argument is when people were talking about, oh yeah, we shouldn't give everybody the ability to vote by mail because then it'll be then it'll always be a Democratic president in office and Democratic representatives and such.
Yeah.
And I'm going, what you're telling me is what you think you're telling me is that it's going to perpetuate fraud, which when we look at mail voting fraud, it's so far all the cases that have been confirmed were Republican. There might have been one Democrat one, if I remember correctly, but the 99.9 something or other to that to that kind of decimal place was all Republican. And then they tried to validate themselves doing it. Well, we had to do it because my deceased wife was going to vote that way. Or we had to do it to compensate for all the voter fraud that was the Democrats were committing, which there was none. And so what the real argument becomes, for anybody who's using logic and reasoning, when they hear it, they go, oh, so what you're saying is that the conservative Republican mindset is that of we must oppress others to maintain power. And if we couldn't oppress others, we wouldn't have any power.
We can't win a legitimate election.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And if you have to cheat to win, then maybe your policy positions suck.
Or you're playing a very specific computer game that requires you to cheat to win.
If I could go back just to make sure that I steel up my position with something a little harder and not just sort of make it like I'm just shitting on conservatives for the sake of it.
Oh, we do that all the time. That's fine. You can do that as much as you want right now.
I try not to be. I've been it's really easy to look and say, he's got a liberal slant, therefore we can't listen to anything he has to say. I'll take a fairly conservative talking point, and I'll show what I mean by this. So, the argument for, oh, you're indoctrinating students. We'll use something contentious. We'll say, okay, trans rights, trans people, and the science is not on the side of trans people. I know basic biology. And then it turns out that when I teach my psychology of sex class and I say, well, okay, let's talk about biology. Let's break down this thing you call biological sex. And I love doing it because inevitably I'll find some people in the class. I'll say, they'll say, oh, I identify as male. I'm like, perfect, you identify as male. How do you know you're male? So, oh, my genes are male genes. I'm like, oh, really? Have you had your karyotype done? What's a karyotype? I'm like, okay. So have you been genetically tested for being a male? Oh, well, no. I'm like, well, then how do you know you're male? And we start breaking it down. We start breaking down the arguments, right? And I start showing them, well, here's what the evidence. I'll show you the evidence. I'll show you the biology. My first degree is a Bachelor of Science, right? So you want to play the science game, I'll show you the science. I'll pile on the evidence and show you that, no, I'm not going up there and just expressing an opinion that trans people are valid, but I'm showing you the evidence. I'm accumulating the evidence. Conveniently, the evidence that they want to pretend isn't there when they just blanket statements say, oh, he's just going up there and preaching about trans people for an hour, completely missing the fact that there was an argument there substantiated by data. So if that's what you call indoctrination, showing your work and making the argument and then having people kind of look at it and say, well, okay, that's kind of a no-brainer. I guess that's indoctrinating. Darn. Again, if teaching people makes them more progressive in their ideas, I'm not sure what to tell you, except I'm not going to apologize for that, and maybe it means you need to rethink what your position is.
Yeah, the concept that if people learn more, experience more, because just because people might be older, might not necessarily be able to go to colleges right now, just traveling, especially outside of your own damn country, which admittedly right now is virtually impossible. Virtually impossible. But it is entirely possible to have virtual tours of places. And, granted, you can't exactly do pen pals anymore, but it's entirely possible to, experience and talk with and learn. Even just that helps to open up people into thinking more about what it is that they do, why they do, what built them to where they are at this point, and what makes them different. And even that experience alone starts to get people to think in terms of maybe even just in the back of their heads, the whole reason for the show. Why? And that question is that question alone opens up so many different things for people to learn and experience and realize, if learning more, experiencing more, understanding more makes me want to change how things have been, maybe things haven't exactly been that great. Maybe there's a good goddamn reason why I want to change the world. Yeah, I was reading one of the news articles on my phone as I was eating dinner, and it was a write up about one of the Star Trek Next Generation episodes, and I've forgotten which one it was off the top of my head, but the guy had basically written up a thing about how arguably the most important question that has ever been, maybe not necessarily a question, that had ever been said in Star Trek was, if there's nothing wrong with me, then there must be something wrong with the universe. The setup was Dr. Crusher ended up accidentally inside of a collapsing warp bubble. She thought she was still on the Enterprise, and people kept disappearing. And she was
people started disappearing.
Yeah, and she was trying to figure out, what in the hell's going on? Because I can't be insane. I'm not insane.
And the best part was how she figured it out was not just by her questioning herself and then going through logic and reasoning of that. She used the ultimate logic bomb on a computer. She asked the computer the one question that the computer should have never been able to answer, and that was, what was the size
No,
of the
no.
universe?
What is the
Or what was
nature? What is the
or what is the
nature
nature of the universe?
of the universe? Yes,
And
it's a
the
great line.
computer, yeah, and the computer gave the actual size, the various dimensions of the bubble.
Yeah, yeah, and the point of
That takes logic to figure that kind of crap out, by the way.
it does, and a certain level of grasping at straws to try to make sense out of an insane situation. If there's nothing wrong with me, what's wrong with the universe? If I'm learning all these new things and I'm putting these pieces together from what we've learned, and the world around us is not helping people from what this data is showing, then maybe it's a good idea to go ahead and change how that all is. And
What?
yeah,
And one thing I wanted to mention too is we've kind of been talking about anti-intellectualism here, and sort of from a conservative perspective, and oh, but I also want to mention that a big part of my job as well, and this is something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough, is also helping to take, I won't say unrefined, but sort of progressive ideas that are untethered by data, and to help rein them in as well. Because I think just as damaging to progressive movements are people who either misconstrue the science, or people who don't know the scientific reason behind what they believe, or who take a reasonable starting point and then go off somewhere crazy with it. And helping say, well, no, my goal is not to push progressive ideas. My goal is to help people make informed decisions based in science, based in data. And if they happen to lead in progressive directions, that's fine. But it's not just about, oh, let's take conservatives and make them liberal. No, let's make people better at assessing science, better at talking in an informed way about it, progressive and liberal. I have just, most of my job, in fact, is taking liberal students and helping to help inform them. Because, I mean, my class is predominantly liberal students. I get very few conservative students. And there's a lot of learning that needs to go on.
yeah. Sad as it might sound for some people, Dunning-Kruger happens on both sides of the aisle.
Oh, and I'm bothered in many ways about the lack of humility that a lot of people show in willingness to acknowledge how little they know, myself included. Right, I need to acknowledge how little I truly know on the things that I'm teaching. And man, it's scary. I'm just as scared of a progressive person who is uninformed as I am about a more conservative person, because they can do just as much damage to the pushing of more progressive ideals, if that's the goal you're going for. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of the problem that we have down here is that, as far as higher education, that has been turned into a business model to make as much money as possible, and are run like businesses rather than institutions for learning.
That too, yeah.
And they teach to a degree and have cut out a lot of the humanities courses and things, of that nature, which I think is harmful to society. And especially down south, they teach you what to think and not how to think.
Well, I think part of that can be attributed, and I'm not going to claim to be the arbiter or to know all it's a hugely complex system. But I would wager that at least part of that problem stems from the way we prioritize degrees and higher learning, right? We had an entire generation that we told, you are literally worthless on the job market if you don't get a degree. And I can't tell you the number of students who I've had where I'm thinking, well, what are you doing in this class? Like, it's not that you're not a dummy by any means, but like you have no interest in this. You don't want to be doing this. You're here to get a piece of paper and then hopefully go get a job somewhere. But we've built this system where younger people feel like, okay, I need to go in and get the piece of paper and then go get a job. And so it becomes this mill of churning out degrees as fast as possible, as efficiently as possible. And it's not good for students. It's not good for professors. Professors certainly don't want to teach under these conditions. We don't want to teach in an environment where a student feels like I paid the money, I deserve the degree at the end of the day. And it's not, it's hard to point to a starting point and say this is the starting point. It's this system that feeds back in on itself, and trying to figure out where to tackle it is going to involve attacking it at multiple points, right? Universities have to change policies about things like grade inflation. We as a society need to change our attitudes for things like hiring policies, right? Do you really need your employee to have a 4-year degree? Is that actually what you want? Or are you just asking for it because you can, right? These kinds of system level changes need to happen, I think, to tackle that problem. And we're not having enough conversations about that and how to effectively tackle it head on.
Yeah, what you talked about is exactly the thing that I remember for me. And I started I started what little college career I had back in '87. So it's and it was such a change from you could support a family as a working person without. You could support a family, have a house, a car, get vacations, have a couple of kids, have a pet, and you still be able to do all the things and have time off for yourself and not go nuts without having. Forgive me for trivializing it for a second for a reason, without having the piece of paper that said that you got the extra thinking done.
For a lot of people, it's the Hail Mary pass. Again, you look at the humor of the Zoomer generation. Look at the way they talk. This is a group of people who they don't see themselves as having a future. They see a doomed economy. They see I'm totally screwed. University is their way of kicking the can down the road for a few years. It's well, maybe this will help. Maybe that if nothing else, it gives me 4 more years of some kind of purpose before I have to revisit where I'm at and realize I'm still no better off. We've handed them this shit sandwich, and they're trying their best. I can't fault any of them for going in and hoping that maybe this will be their golden ticket out of here. And again, fixing this is going to have to come at all levels. It's going to have to come from politicians changing policies at higher levels. It's going to have to come from companies changing hiring practices. It's going to have to come from universities changing their policies. And just as a society, rethinking, what is the purpose of higher education? Is university the only thing that we value? Why don't we value trade schools more? Why don't we value other forms of education as well?
And that's a funny thing, because I can remember hearing things reminding you, this is going back to the whole, you need to have your diploma because you need to have a diploma, where there was the downplay of, do you really want to be working a grimy job for the rest of whatever, as opposed to the nice cushy office job. And now, all these years later, it's like, well, like you were saying, well, we need people who are, tradesmiths and whatnot. We need people who are pipe fitters and die cutters and people who know how to operate CNC machines. And it's like, it really is a complete flip around of how everything has been from what we were told, because that's what the expectation was. And now suddenly, 20 years later, things have flipped around in such a way that the boomer generation, who does not want to sit down and get the fuck out of the way, thank you very much, don't want to adjust to the reality of how things have evolved.
A shortage in this country of skilled plumbers and electricians.
I never tire of reminding my students that when I was going to university, I had several friends of mine who went into the trades, and to this day, they make more than I do consistently. They are many years ahead into their, into having seniority at their positions than I do. They, up until I had tenure, they had better job security than I did. I'm like, yeah, in many cases the trades are the smarter pick for a lot of younger folks, but man, we don't value it, and I think we need to get away from this idea that the only way, the only education that's worth valuing is that which you get through university, which is just not the case. I feel in some ways like I'm speaking. You know, a university professor shouldn't be shooting himself in the foot by telling people that you don't need to come to university if your job prospects or your heart isn't in it. But
No, if there's one thing that I've learned, someone who is a teacher, and I don't mean any particular level, but someone who is a teacher is someone who is able to connect with someone so that they end up learning better in the long run. And sometimes it's not necessarily, to our detriment. Usually it isn't. Sometimes it is not to our benefit, because sometimes things work in different ways. And if the right thing to do is to tell somebody, you shouldn't be here, you should be blah, then that is the moral responsibility to do as somebody who is a teacher. I mean, isn't that really the part of the reason why you wanted to be, teaching? You wanted to be helping someone to learn better and to be better for themselves and for, let's put it grandiose, for society as a whole down the road.
of course, the counterpoint to what I'm saying, if I'm gonna, I'm trying to anticipate angry counterpoints here. One could argue that the position that I'm pushing for can lead to elitism, or is very elitist. Oh, you're saying only certain people ought to go to university, and you're trying to create some what's intelligentsia that's going to and that's sort of the counterpoint to it, which again leads, I think, to this idea of anti-intellectualism, the idea that, no, we should all be able to equally say we're experts on everything. I'm like, maybe there's nothing wrong with a small amount of intellectual elitism. Maybe some people are better suited to answer certain questions as a result of their education, not like genetic or anything like that, but as a result of their education.
Yeah.
Better suited to answer some questions than others.
Yeah, for instance, I'm not going to ask Neil deGrasse Tyson how to plumb a toilet. I'm not going to be doing that. But the problem with your counter is that we've already had that. My generation was given exactly that. It was not some people are just not cut out for college. It was everybody must go to college. And if you're not, then you're lesser. We've already had that. And like I said, 20, 40 years later, look where it's gotten us now. So yeah, the piece that you're talking about, yeah, we've already gone through that. And yeah, we need to not have that be happening anymore.
One thing I am encouraged by is I'm not sure how, the spread of knowledge outside of the ivory towers. I think we in academia have a bit of blame to be thrown our direction for contributing in some way to this wreath of being in the ivory tower and being sort of clouded and shrouded in mystery. I love websites like Wikipedia. I love open access journals. I love the idea of making and disseminating the knowledge out there so that we as a society can get better at it. I don't want it to be this, only the elites in their towers can answer these questions. I think it's great that the public can learn as well, and as a group, everyone kind of learn and get better. But at the same time, I think we can balance that against, I spent an afternoon on Wikipedia, therefore I can tell my doctor what I should be diagnosed with. I have this silly belief that there's a middle ground reasonable somewhere between those two extremes.
There is, but we also have to recognize that, one afternoon on YouTube does not make one an expert on anything. Over in the chat, by the way, guys, part of the reason why I typed over in there to say that, if anybody's got a question, feel free to drop it. I did look at the statistics, which I normally don't do, but I just did, and it shows that we've got actually 4 concurrent watchers currently, which is, don't get me wrong, I know it's a small number, but for us, it's always nice to have, creeping up numbers. I know that we're not like huge or anything, but if anybody does want to drop a question or something, feel free. Stephanie had said YouTube can help here. They're vloggers who have no diplomas and are doing nicely. True. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love about the 21st century technology. I mean, we had no idea something like this was going to... No, let me take that back. Back in the late... When was it? Back in the 90s, mid-90s, there was a company called Nuka who came up with something called the Video Toaster for the Amiga computers. And part of what they were promoting this for was so that, and near as I can remember how they put it out, you become the news agencies. Now, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, because the idea was that you could take a camcorder, take whatever it was that you recorded, pump it through this thing, make your own actual TV stuff and services. And what they were advocating at that time is what has become with a lot of folks, with YouTube, with, Let's Players, with people who are out there actually gathering news and doing their own thing. Bridget, who was that one guy that who's been doing like newscasts and whatnot?
Oh, David Packman.
David, yeah. And he's one. What has he got? He's got like one 1080p camera and good research. Mm-hmm. And really, when all is said and done, what more do you really need? So long as you know how to find the right information, know how to present it, and understand the topics, you can do it. And admittedly, we're just lay people talking through stuff as best as what we know. And okay, 4 people think that we're interesting while we're doing this live, whatever. It's late at night, shut up, whatever. But yeah, man, the new technology really makes a huge difference in how we look at what is a business these days, no?
I largely agree. I think my only concern, and this is just me being the worry wart over here, I feel like it's I don't want to say it's a band-aid on a problem. There's a fundamental problem in the way the economy is structured right now. So I'm letting my socialist roots show here. Simply, we have an abundance of people and not enough jobs for those people. And people are finding niche places to earn a living, right? So YouTube has been good in helping, and also Twitch TV and places like that. It has been good at helping some people to find lucrative careers there. But it's not a viable. Not everyone gets to be a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer, and the reality is we see numbers of unemployed people climbing, and a need to create. It sounds like we're trying to find work for all these people. There's going to be a need to fundamentally rethink things like how we structure an economy in a world where we don't need everyone to be working. Not that I'm proposing to have any of the solutions here, more so just like helping people to realize that a lot of these problems are way more complex than we make them out to be, and the solutions are going to have to be equally nuanced and complex. And if nothing else, as a social psychologist, that's my job, is to appreciate how nuanced and complex and systemic these problems are.
And that's one of the reasons why... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. And as technology gets better and better, we're going to have more and more people that are displaced from their jobs.
Yep.
Yeah, that has definitely been happening. The news reports of people who are simply walking off of food service jobs because people are being absolute asshats. And I can't say as I blame them.
But a lot of jobs are being replaced by automation. I mean, even working in Amazon warehouse now, they have, robotic, pickers and things now.
And the problem is that a lot of people hear that and they think the solution is to push back against it. Say, oh well, people should stop going to the automated checkouts in grocery stores, as if that's the solution, as if fighting against technology and advancement has ever been the solution. I mean, the reality is we're going to have to. Automation is here to stay, and there's going to be a need to rethink, our assumptions about, well, what is it necessary for a person to work a 40-hour week in order for them to earn their living, right? Is that a thing that we still need to have in a society where automation is able to produce so much for us? Like, I don't claim to have the solutions, but
Well, I mean, even in education, a lot of schools now are going to an online format and are finding that it's cheaper to have one professor that can teach 10,000 students.
yep. I mean, even for myself, I can pre-record my lectures, and in fact, during COVID, that's what I did. I ended up, because I couldn't be in a classroom, I had to pre-record my lectures, and in theory, there's nothing stopping the university from just deciding, well, we're just going to keep these and we don't need you anymore. I mean, I'm tenured now, so they can't do that. But in theory, if they felt so inclined, they could just decide, okay, well, we got your lectures now. We don't need you anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and before anybody thinks, well, they wouldn't be able to do that. That would be wrong. I mean, you're basically stealing the person's work product and using it in perpetuity. Might I remind you folks that I hate to use this example, but Dan Castellaneta. Oh my God, I know his name. The guy who voices Homer Simpson. All right. God, what the hell? This is not the alcohol screwing with my head. It really is. He had talked about how they were not sure how long The Simpsons was going to continue going, and that maybe he would just decide he just was going to go ahead and just ask for like exorbitant amounts of money because he can, only to realize, oh shit, the company that produces has so much tape of me now, they could just splice together whatever words they want and just use my past product to continue making new episodes without my input whatsoever and me not getting paid for that.
And if people don't think they can do that, look to the My Little Pony fandom, where they've done that with the 10 years of the show. They've been able to pretty well be able to use AI to create systems that can pretty closely replicate the actors' voices.
Yeah, the website for it is currently down. It was kind of a kind of experimental, kind of real, and yeah, they did it for a number of different things. A number of the My Little Pony characters, some of the characters from SpongeBob, a couple of video game characters as well. I've forgotten what they were, but yeah, the ability of being able to do that, which also brings me to another thing. Yeah, we've got people who are doing, YouTube and finding job in it, but there are independent programmers for games and utilities and applications up and down the yin yang that just explode on the scene, and suddenly there's stuff that takes the world by storm. You had Kerbal Space Program 10 years ago came on the scene, and suddenly we've now got a new generation of space engineers who are literally learning this stuff. And groups like whoever the hell it was that put together a Power Wash Simulator, that's suddenly all the rage, and it's a Power Wash Simulator. Why? Why is this so popular? Full disclosure, I paid for the goddamn thing and I've played it and I've enjoyed it too, and I don't know why. So,
as a media researcher, I can also explain that.
Oh God.
That might be another episode.
It might. Well, I mean, that's assuming you even want to come back. I mean,
You wrote me back into it once already. I'm sure I can.
yeah, but that was only because, you know, community service, get it off your record. It's kind of, I don't know, kicked a beaver or something. I don't know what the hell happened. And Stephanie was also saying, I'm not talking about people who make huge amounts of money off YouTube, by the way. Yeah, the vast majority of people aren't. But there are folks that are actually, you know, earning a little bit here and there, you know, couple of dollars here and there, some Patreon stuff, selling, you know, whatever. But I got to admit, there are a number of YouTubers who are doing reactions to stuff that we grew up on, that they had never experienced firsthand. Movies, music, and inevitably people who are just absolutely agog with the musicality of like the Eagles, or absolutely rolling in laughter, trying to hold everything in, watching Blazing Saddles and wondering, how the hell did this happen? What the hell am I even watching? What am I listening to? This is amazing. That education back up to us is something that's really, really something special. Leaving the money out of it, watching the kids experiencing Queen at Live Aid for the first time, and watching these people who are just like, what the fuck kind of magic is this? Is wonderful for us who experienced it firsthand, who now get to look at it and go, yeah, we know what we can help you guys understand now.
Oh, what I thought was funny, you were mentioning Queen, is I was listening to, I think it was Queen's Greatest Hits or something like that, and doing some house cleaning. And my daughter, I forget how old she was at the time, but she heard that song, Someone to Love,
Oh,
or Somebody to Love, or whatever it
yeah,
is from
somebody
Queen.
to love.
And she said, "Oh, wow, that's a really cool remake." And I'm like, actually, no, that's the original.
Well, there's a wonderful appreciation. I'll delve very slightly into the media research here. There's a growing appreciation among younger folks for non-ironic enjoyment of media. It's one of the reasons why the Brony fandom rose to prominence the way it did. Was like, if you watch reality television, if you watch network news television, if you watch, it's there's so much cynicism, there's so much sarcasm, there's so much vitriol. I mean, again, reality TV in particular, it's just a bunch of people laughing at the shittiness of other people. And there's a real desire among younger people to get back to simpler things that just make you feel kind of good, things that are just nice, authentic, make you feel kind of good. And I think you find that both in the kind of YouTube content that people create, which is very authentic in many cases, more authentic at least than much of corporate media, but also looking back to maybe a simpler time when things weren't where they are now in the media. There's a certain appeal to the genuineness of it all.
Yeah, I just pulled up a listing of television shows that that came on the scene that premiered in 2010, which was the same year that MLP started. The most recent,
Yeah.
sort of, because we've got another one that's going to be coming. My
Gen
Little
5,
Pony:
yeah.
Friendship is Magic. I know. Most of you people are just like, just go with me for a second on this one, because this goes with it all. Some of the ones that had premiered that same year: Worst Cooks in America, Border Wars. Let me find some of the other ones over here. Human Target, Paranormal Cops. Yeah, A&E, nice going there, guys. Caprica. Yeah, you want to talk about,
Caprica was good. Caprica was good. It was Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah. The Michael Vick Project, really. undercover boss, which I will admit the premise is good. I just hope that, you know, the bosses actually learned from it and put it all together. What are some of the other ones over here? Minute to Win It. Okay. Fun idea for money to have parlor games. Okay, you know. Some nicer ones.
But so much of it is contrived and horribly. Again, I talk to people who watch television and ask, why do you watch that show? And a lot of times, oh well, I watch it ironically. I watch it to laugh at the people. I watch it because they're like, oh, my life is way better than those people. I watch it because of how desperate and pathetic they are, and it's an kind of a snarky cynicism, a disgusting kind of just gross feeling that comes with it. And so there's been a push for more authentic media, right? So just something that's just genuinely nice, people genuinely being nice to one another. And you see that in the Zoomer generation, this desire to, can't we just like go back to things being kind of nice?
Yeah. And I'm still looking through some of these shows, man. Why with some of these? Hawaii Five-O's reboot happened at that point also. Just, there's really something to be said for that, man. That maybe a little bit of, some would call it escapism. And that's not necessarily wrong, but is it necessarily wrong to have that? You know, I don't think so. I mean, one of the epic rap battles of history was J.R.R. Tolkien lambasting J.R.R. Murrow, whatever the hell his name was, yelling at him and telling him, "Look, it's called fantasy for a reason. The good guys win, the bad guys lose. It's fantasy. It's supposed to be fun. It doesn't have to be everybody dies because, oh, I just want to be a shitlord." No.
I'm also a fantasy researcher.
You're paying my...
I wear many hats.
Yeah. Somehow that doesn't totally surprise me. And the fact that there was a want, a desire, maybe even a need for that kind of wholesome escapism that didn't... There was a show that Jack Benny did back in the late 40s, I think is what it was. Went to New York City. And reminding you this, everybody, that this was back in the time of live radio, the golden age of live radio comedy. So everything's on stage, live in front of an audience. You got a couple of guys over there for the band. You got the sound effects guys. You got the engineers who are trying to make sure that nothing goes boom. And Jack was talking to the folks that were going to be putting on the show. You know, the guys who were actually helping to produce it. And told them, don't write jokes that are going to talk down to the audience. Never talk down, never insult the audience. You do one dumb joke, and I'm out of here. And I think that is really something that is important. Like you said, the younger generations are smelling the bullshit from miles away. They don't want to be putting up with that anymore. They don't want to be talked down to. They don't want to be insulted anymore. And as soon as you go ahead and you try to do that because that's the way it's always been done, no, then I'm out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I to return to your points about escapism, I'm perfectly fine with a healthy amount of escapism. To sort of maybe put a bow on all of this, younger folks, I've noticed, perhaps more than any other generation, are the biggest activists. They're the ones who are looking to change the world. They're the ones who are having to roll up their sleeves, look at the economy as it is, look at the climate as it is, and say, like, we got a lot of work to do. And so, yeah, they can be forgiven for needing a certain amount of escapism now and then, whether it's through social media, whether it's through the shows they watch. And I'm happy to give that to them. I'm happy to not literally produce that content. I'm happy to let them have their escapism, because, I mean, many of them are going to school. The ones who are taking it seriously are there to learn to become more effective, to be more efficacious in instilling the kind of change the world really needs right now. So, yeah, I encourage it. I say that, as long as you touch grass once in a while, yeah, whatever you got to do to keep that motivation up, because we're going to need it.
Trying to find the balance. I hear that. We're at the top of the hour, so we gotta wrap things up. Bridget, Tech, either one of you guys got any last questions that think need to be asked? Don't all answer at once.
Apologies for my talking so much.
No, that's exactly the reason why you're here, man. Import whatever it is that you've got for us.
What he said.
All right. Tech, you didn't fall asleep on us, right? This time?
I don't hear
Just kidding.
snoring.
Just kidding. I actually still have coffee. I've been working at, and I still haven't finished it yet. Surprise, surprise.
Oh, that's okay.
You still have more for the morning. Well, wait, it is morning. Gotta drink faster. Must drink faster. Must drink faster.
That's
the one thing you don't want to hear at the bar.
right there. Just
mainline it. Yeah. No, I don't have.
No, that's not mainlining it. No, sorry. It's this side. It's this side. Left side or right side?
Right.
Considering that I burned myself twice with the 3D printer,
Well,
I shouldn't be putting any needles near my neck.
That's probably a really good idea. All right. That being the case, then, normally I would. The long and short of what I've got to close with, and really short one. What Nuka said earlier, man. If you're worried about kids going into higher education and they're going to become liberal clone robots because they're learning about reality, yeah, then maybe reality needs to have itself whacked just a little bit. Remember, progressive maintenance still works sometimes. That's what the clue by 4 is for. Doc, I'll give you an opportunity to say whatever it is that you'd like to kind of, like you were saying, put a bow, whatever you think might be left over that you think probably might need to be done.
God, it's hard to think of one thing. I would say the kids are okay. I would say the kids are okay. There's this tendency, I think, in our society to see everything as doom and gloom, and to throw so much of the blame on the young people these days. And one of the best parts about teaching is getting to them, and I'm constantly humbled and inspired by these students. And I think the people who work with the younger generations are granted a little more optimism than people who don't get to be. I see them. I feel like the future's in good hands. I feel like a bunch of us need to kind of get out of the way and let them show us a thing or two. And I'm inspired by it. I'm encouraged by it. I don't despair, despite the state of the world sometimes. And it's easy to get that way. But yeah, I think if I could say they taught me one thing, it would be to have some hope.
You know, I think I'm going to hold on to that one line. The kids are okay. I don't know why that has emotionally affected me as hard as it just did, but that's something I definitely want to hold on to. So, with that, we're going to have to call it a night. So, everybody, as always, thank you very much for being with us. I hope that you found something worthwhile in all of our perspectives and something to think about for the week ahead for yourselves. Felis, yeah, it is that late already. Man, you made it. Congratulations. Well done. Good on you. Now, go to sleep. And Stephanie, of course, yeah, thank you very much. Stephanie had also said, right at the end of it all, currently watching a lad who turns vans into RVs for a living and lives in one. I just watched his trip through Scotland. Wonderful scenery, but he did not hide that he got wet and cold. Wonderful. How in the hell would you ever know that? How would you actually understand what he's saying? Or maybe he's not Scottish, in which case you could probably understand it perfectly fine. Whatever, doesn't matter. Sorry. You move a couple counties over in London, suddenly it's hard to understand.
They're really hard to understand.
So that's kind of the way that it works. Doctor, I was almost gonna call him. I was gonna go ahead and give the whole big thing. I'm not gonna do that. I will just do it this one because it is respect on my part, Courtney. It is so good to have the opportunity of checking in with you again, man. I've missed you, for well. It's been, God, what is it? It's been 2 years, hasn't it?
2 years too long.
Yeah, and hopefully the next time that we'll be able to do and get together, it will be completely safely so. Because I can't wait to see you again.
I look forward to it.
Yep. I've got some of your information in the show notes for everybody, of course, about the Fur Science Group and for the college that you're at. I sincerely hope that was okay.
No, totally fine. Yep.
So, anything that you'd like to plug for yourself, or I'm going to make sure that when we get done, that I can make sure that I add into the show notes links to any and all of your publications, so that folks can go look it up, because some of that is really good stuff.
If you just go to First Science, it's easy to find them all. We got a research and publications tab, and they're all there. So don't break your back having to type all of that. In terms of plugs, if you're really, really interested in weird fandom research, I got you covered. I've written a book on anime fans, on bronies, on media violence. I got an upcoming book probably the next year or so. I'm updating my book on furries. So lots and lots of stuff there. Firstscience.com if you want to learn more about furries or win internet arguments with data. That's the place to go.
So when are you going to do some research on Rush fandom?
You know what? There's so many fandoms you want to study.
Rush.
The ones we're trying to get right now is BTS fandom. That's the one that's really big with the kids right now. BTS and K-pop in general. And it's just a matter of time at this point. Every time someone suggests a fandom, like, well, wait for an honor student who wants to take us there. We just started getting into the Star Wars fandom because we had an honor student who was interested in that. So give it time. The important thing is we're not just studying sports fans anymore, which is what the fan research was. For like 20 years, all we studied was sports fans. So we're finally moving off of that.
It'd be interesting when you get somebody who does the research on the fandom for midget tossing.
Oh dear.
That's a real sport.
Yes.
Well, it's not necessarily sport, but it's a real thing.
It's a very small Zamboni, I'm sure. There is a very twisted joke in there for anybody that wants to go ahead and figure it out. So there we go. Again, we'll make sure that whatever links we can get, we'll get from them before we let them go out of here.
Wait, they still make the links? What? I thought that game system was retired a long time ago.
Tech, I would very much like to say it's been a pleasure. I would really like to. You're making it difficult
on what you'd like to do.
You're making it difficult now. But it's good to have you back, man. You take care of yourself. You stay safe, huh?
Yep. Like I said, I won't see you guys next weekend, but maybe the weekend after that.
Well, don't go away just yet, because I'm going to make you feel really bad that you're not going to be here. Bridget, thank you, hon. And you know what to do.
To say another fandom that I really like is Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Okay, now you're
Love it.
This man has no neck.
As an Italian, I am very offended by that and targeted.
Dude, I'm part Italian too.
I used to go as the narrator.
I'm
It's a
not that
Rocky
sensitive.
Horror Picture Show.
I used to go as a narrator. I used to go as Columbia.
Perpetuity, bless my soul. I really love that rock and roll.
DMCA, stay off
I
our
was told I made a
channel.
good meatloaf.
But not Meatloaf again.
I'm really. Richard,
Speaking of Eddie, anybody for seconds?
Richard, you know what to do.
Oh gosh, just
A toast.
fuck the GQP, man. You're ruining my country. And just like take your Jewish space lasers and get them the hell out of here.
Use in space.
And Marcy Prater Green, and I just can't stand her.
Yeah,
And fuck Mike Pence too.
Yeah, that's a given. He's 95 years old. I mean, which one of them is going to go first? Is it going to be Mel Brooks or is it going to be Betty White? I'm really not looking forward.
Not Betty White, no.
Yeah, I know. I'm very much not looking forward to either one of those possibilities, but be that as it may. Everybody, thank you very much for being with us. Like I said, many a time, I'll make sure that everything that I can get in there to point you guys to new reading material for the summer is in there. So you can go looking that up. If you'd like to get in touch with us anyway, take a swing over to holycrapthevlogcast.com. All of our links are be there, show notes, etc., including the podcast version of the show, so you can get that. If you'd like to leave a voicemail message, the phone number is 859-HCTV-554, 859-428-8554. Now, I'm very happy because we will have guests again next week, which is our Power of 10 episode. Reminding you, Power of 10 episode, there are no filters, so it will be a not safe for work episode. It will be filtered for people. I am looking to get in for us next week, Sam and Becky from Ask an Atheist in Tacoma. Because there is a news article that has surfaced. I helped them out on their show when the whole COVID lockdown thing happened, and we had to talk about it. And this damned news article, a year and a half later, has resurfaced, and we have to have a discussion about this again. As soon as I can make sure that we've got them, I will have notes out for everybody to know about this. But in the meantime, you will take very good care of yourselves. Please be safe. Please be careful. If you have not already, if you are able to, get vaccinated. Encourage folks who have not yet to get vaccinated. Please just be safe. And of course, because it is the summer, if you are going to spend any time out on the water, please do not boat and drink. Fall down drunk on dry land and hurt yourself. Don't become a statistic in the water. So, until next week, we'll look forward to seeing you then. So as always, I wish you all the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. And of course, for my lady, 28 years of wedded time that we should have had. I am still in love. Matane Fujin, I love you. I miss you. Dream of me. Till the next time we get together, everyone. As always, good night.